Good morning. Welcome to the June meeting of the New York State Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government. Before we begin our session, I'll ask Executive Director Berlin to discuss the logistics of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair James. This meeting is being held pursuant to notice and in accordance with the provisions of the state's open meeting law and executive law section 94. Plus the conference room we're using today at the Commission Law, Albany at 540 Broadway, and the room we're using at 25 Beaver Street in Manhattan, or open to the public during public session. And public session is also being live streamed. The link for that can be found on the Commission's website at ethics.ny.gov. Note too that Commissioner Austin may be participating in a portion of the meeting remotely by video conference pursuant to Public Officers Law Section 103-A and the Commission's rules and resolution for remote participation on account of extraordinary circumstances. And I can state that a quorum of commissioners is present for the meeting.
Okay, thank you. First item on our agenda is the minutes of the public session of May 27th. Are there any corrections?
We received them.
All right, may I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Walcott, seconded by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the minutes, all in favor?
I'm abstaining because I was not here.
Thank you. All right, next is the report from staff, so like operations update from starting with Executive Director Berlin. Yep.
Thank you, Chair James. Call the Commission's attention to the monthly operations report under tab B and the agenda book. As we've been doing, I'm going to keep my remarks extremely brief. Commissioners have any questions, staff will be happy to respond. Or if you have any inquiries subsequent to the meeting, please feel free to reach out. I'll just note briefly that starting with investigations on page 1, I will note that the number of open and pending as currently shown through the end of May of this year is substantially lower by 26 matters than a year ago. The total was 263. So the group is making very good progress. And the number of open investigations remains comparatively low, low 50s. Advice and guidance, page 2, you'll see that the numbers starting to stabilize, but we're still running more than twice, and in some instances 3 times, the number of guidance inquiries that the Commission received at its inception and the prior Commission received. Again, something that we think is largely attributable to the increase in training that the Commission and its officers are providing to the state workforce. I will also note that as requested by commissioners at the last meeting, the miscellaneous category has been broken out to some extent. So you'll see that inquiries for financial disclosure and lobbying are now being separately reported. So there's more granularity on the post-employment and outside activity requests continue to run at the highest level among inquiries. Lobbying, last month was a bi-monthly reporting month. You will see the big surge in numbers of bi-monthly filings, nearly 5,800 BIMOs and BIMO amendments have come in that period of time. You'll also see, first row, as compared with last year, the number of individual and principal registered lobbyists is about 12 or 13% higher this year than it was last year. That may partly reflect the fact that this is the second year in a biennial registration cycle, but I think it also reflects the increased activity. We'll talk about that in a little bit in more detail. Financial disclosure deadline for the non-academic filers was May 15th. You can see that the number of filings is running extremely high. the total now, taking into account those that were filed in April in advance of the deadline, those that came in May, and another nearly 1,100 that have come in since this report was printed, is now just under 26,000, with more to come. You have a handout that breaks out the number of failed files that were issued by the Financial Disclosure Unit. You'll see that the total was 4,606, and provided you with a breakout in descending order by agency, so you can see where the spread of those is. The number of filings continues to come in, and the number of outstanding filings continues to drop. I will note that there are 94 legislative candidates who received failure to file notices, dropped out. 59 still have not filed. And the next step will, if those filings don't come in, will be the issuance of notices of delinquency. Any questions on financial disclosure? Training unit, you see the numbers were still disappointingly running at about half the total we need in order to reach the target of universal training. The group is implementing first steps of the 3-year plan that the commission approved. And I will say the group remains confident that we'll hit the target set in the plan for this year. Last year, we saw a surge in training, and we're expecting, despite best efforts, so probably that's going to be the arc of training this year as well, for the last 4 months of the year.
Is this for the non-compliant group?
This includes the non-compliant group. There's been very, very heavy activity with respect to getting that non-compliant group, those who didn't take training at all in 24 and 25, as well as those who didn't take training in 25, to get them trained as quickly as possible. But that group is not fully trained yet.
So it's also not meeting its target.
The target is to get them trained, hopefully within the first half of the year.
Okay, so we have time.
So we're still working on that. We'll see if we reach that target. But the overall target of getting to 85% for the year remains realistic. We hit 80%. We think we can make that kind of improvement, but as frustrating as it is for some of us, it looks like there's going to be a bolus of training taking place in the back end of the year. We'd like to see that better distributed. I certainly would like to see greater utilization of the on-demand modules that are out there. And because so much live training was done last year, because it's an alternate requirement of live followed by on-demand, there's a huge population that's eligible for that. Part of the problem we're seeing is getting the data out to ethics officers so that they can discern and appropriately communicate which employees need to take live training this year, which need to take or can take on-demand training. You see the on-demand is pretty low for May. We have fewer than 3,000 who've taken on-demand. And we need to work on that. Lobbyists and clients continue to take their training. So year to date, with 3,700, this is the second triennial in the training process. So they're getting up there, but not quite there. Audit and review, the numbers are very solid. They're extremely solid. We're looking to get up to 2,200 a year. And with the totals we have here, it looks like we're very much going to reach the targets that we set for those. So that's very, very positive. And communications, another very busy month. 27 FOIL requests and 24 responded to. Everything is on time. Our number of impressions, social media impressions, is way up almost 4,000 for the month. running behind last year a little bit year to date, but
Yeah.
slowly picking up website users over 50,000 again. And 5 e-blast newsletters and 5 proactive media outreach. So the group is very, very busy.
I can see they're busy, and I can see the increase this month. But I'm just struggling with why there's a decline in year-to-date, given all of the efforts we put into making more information aware, greater awareness of the public.
We're trying through our outreaches to find out.
Mhm.
We're taking great steps to figure out what are the most effective means of communicating. We also need to upgrade our systems, and that's part of it. I'm working on it.
Is it that I'm just thinking that people will be more excited with all the work that you've done?
Well, we do have more followers, so that's a big component of it, but social media is the most effective way to communicate to our audience because we have so few followers at this point. But our audiences are fairly small, so direct communication through newsletters and emails to get to our constituents is the more effective way.
I think it's also hard this time of the year. So much attention is focused on what's going on. Legislature budget, lots of maneuvering over big issues this year. It's an election year. I think that some has the effect of muting some of the messaging that we're doing. People are inundated with so much information.
We did just launch 2 videos this month with the addition of our assistant communication specialist. She has the capability to create videos. So those are generating some interest. I think we launched our first one in June. So hopefully that will generate more interest.
And I think we have an older workforce too.
Oh, yeah.
Social
All the
media.
state work.
Thank you.
Any questions? But I hope the takeaway that's extremely busy. Improved our head count a little bit. Talk about that more in a minute. That's having an impact in a number of groups. So I think it's all very positive, but we have work to do. We don't. If there are no questions,
Budget update.
budget update. The budget reports are under tab C. We're only a couple of months into the new budget. I will say that the cash projections are just that. I don't think, do we have the official word yet on our cash allocations here? From DOB,
Those, what's in there is the estimates from DOB.
based on last year.
Yeah. And so hopefully for July, we should have the final cash level.
Last year, the discount from appropriation to cash was about 4%. For purposes of our projections, we're going to be using that figure until DOB gives us the actual cash number. You will see, we plan to spend all of the money. That comes in. We're going to use our best efforts. And I will say we have, and I've been saying this for months now, because it's part of our position. We have stripped the expense side of the operation to the bare minimum.
Yeah.
There's literally no slack in it. If we get hit with any unforeseen expense, it's going to be problematic. And the fact that as great as it is for the state workforce, for our workforce, to have a 4.5% general salary increase, that's terrific, and people deserve it. That's something I don't think, certainly we didn't, I don't think any agency was expecting that kind of service. That's 50% more than 3% that we've seen for I don't know how many years now in increases, general salary increases. So that's a big hit. And bear in mind, most of our budget is in the personal services side. So with the exception of one person, everybody's going to see that 4.5%. But there was no corresponding increase in budget to reflect that.
Sandy,
So that's going to have an impact. Commissioner.
so in the past, you talked about unexpected expense. What type of unexpected expenses do you see on occasion?
We have seen the need for new software licenses, for example, that could be expensive. We don't have any current rent increases coming, but we're going to be going into negotiations over rent. We factored in all of the escalations that are in our leases, so we don't anticipate that. We've replaced pretty much all of our computer hardware, but we can have failures that can cost us money. We were concerned about potential obsolescence in a whole bunch of our laptops. And if we hit some upgrades and those don't work, we have to come up with money.
Thank you.
But it's not like the boiler going out or the roof.
That's,
Those-
see, when I
those are
hear
all
that,
taken
that's
care
what
of.
I think of. Boilers going
Yeah,
out,
it's
roofs and
Well,
all.
at least so far as we know. No, we think we're protected on those kinds of things. And we have service agreements and the like for our printers and major pieces of hardware. We've scrambled a little bit. An example is we've had to find money for it. We want to convert the upstairs conference room into a training center. We had been talking with the landlord and with the state about acquiring more space in the building for a training center. The ability to do that. So we're converting one of the conference rooms into a training facility, but we need hardware for it. We got an estimate from OGS that's just beyond our means. And so we're going to take the old equipment that we used to use in the conference room in New York and drive it up here and figure out a way to configure those monitors. So we get a sound bar so that for $800 we could do what the state is going to charge us $8,000 or $9,000 to do. And we hadn't factored that in, but somehow we'll find $800.
Now,
Hopefully we'll be
Any questions on the budget? Any other questions?
Commissioner per diems under tab D. These cover the May 27 commission meeting, the May 12th education committee meeting, and you can see prep time, March, April for some commission members. The total for the month is just under $15,000 together with this April total year to date per diems, not including expenses, is $34,253.28. And these per diems were paid June 17th.
That's since April, right? Like April 1st, maybe?
What?
April 1st.
Since April 1st, for the fiscal year. We're within budget. On the per diem side. Okay. Staffing update. We are currently recruiting for 2 investigators, ideally 1 for our investigation and enforcement unit, ideally 1 in Manhattan, 1 in Albany. We are also in the process of extending an offer to a training associate, a trainer for the Albany office to replace a trainer who left recently. That will leave 1 training position vacant. We have a data analyst for that group. We want to fill that position. Want to fill a position in the financial disclosure unit for a filing specialist. And that's pretty much what we can do within our budget.
help me understand. Am I correct that we originally talked about for the education unit, replacing, hiring 2 and replacing 1? Right? And now we're down to hiring
We had a
1.
vacancy. We had a vacancy that hadn't been filled, and then we had another position, a trainer who resigned. So we're replacing the trainer who resigned.
Right? But then we had 2 new positions.
And we don't have the ability now to fill the other vacancy. We still have the data assistant position, admin position that we need to fill in that unit. In the absence of filling that position, trainers are ending up having to do more data work than they should. So that's creating an inefficiency. Nonetheless, if you go back and you look at the data for the group is training a higher and higher proportion of the state workforce
Right.
than ever before. They're conducting far more trainings. So the group is working well in conducting the trainings. So for now, we want to see how well we can do.
I know they're working well, but they're working well with Hair on Fire. At least when we get feedback from them with regard to the overload that they feel.
Yeah,
And we talked about that. They have high goals to set, and we had in the original, not in the original, but in your staffing plan, we talked about 2 new and 1 replacement, and now it's down to 1 and 1. And I'm just,
We're down to 1 and 1, but the group is hitting its targets. So as long as we can hit the targets and with system improvements, talk about that now. We have now instructed ITS to put all of its other projects for us aside and concentrate only on the projects that are needed for the training system.
so we're saying technology upgrades will enable us to meet our goals with 1 less person without Hair being on fire.
That's the goal. We'll see. We're gonna have to, we've been talking about this extensively. We're gonna have to juggle. We are going to have, as we have vacancies develop in the agency, we're gonna, and staff knows this. As vacancies develop, we're not automatically going to be filling vacancies. We're going to be looking at where we most need personnel.
And
Right
there's
now,
other
we have to replace the 2 investigators. We have to do that. The FDS unit is doing an incredible amount of work, but they really need to have the new admin in that group. That's just indispensable. Those positions. We have to get the training assistant hired and working in that group. And then we're going to pretty much hit the wall on hiring.
Which is gonna
And
leave
we may
an
be-
auditor position unfilled as well, that's never been filled. And this is because of the unforeseen increase in raises that we didn't know was coming until the budget came out. So it's just, we have to leave more positions that haven't been filled, unfilled. There's no other way to do it.
That additional 1.5%, again, it's great for staff. Staff deserves that raise, but that 1.5% against our overall budget is going to cost us more than 1 person.
So shouldn't we be looking at decreasing our expectations for the year? I'm just listening to the feedback I'm getting from you and from your training staff with regard to being stretched to the limit.
No.
I think the plan allows for adjustment as needed, right? So if we see something that needs adjusting, it can be adjusted, but for now, we just put it into place pretty much knowing this.
Yeah, and we did a procurement 2 years ago so that we can go out and hire temps to do some of the administrative work if those kinds of things come up. And I think, at least I think, that we can do that cost effectively. Finding the right people is always the key in filling any position. But we're pretty comfortable we can make things work. There are other vacancies. There's an auditor position that's vacant, but the group is hitting targets. So right now, we're comfortable. We do not have to adjust our targets.
Unfortunately, positions that have never been filled, so.
Yeah, those were added
Ones being
positions.
displaced,
Those were added
Okay.
positions, so. We're making things work. We'll be starting the next budget cycle. We just got with this one. We're going to be starting our preparations for the next budget cycle next month, getting ready for it. So we'll be pushing
I need a more aggressive strategy
more aggressive.
in our absence.
We're going to get camping equipment. We'll sleep in the Capitol.
I'm in our ask, because next year's raises are 4%, which again, we did not.
That's
1% higher than what we had planned for next year. So flat budget isn't really on the table.
Yeah, it's up over the next 3 years. Instead of 3% a year, it's 4.5, 4, and then 3.5. So that's an extra 2.5% we're contending with. That's not easy. That is the staffing update. We'll have more next month, but the budget side of it, we just don't see improving.
And, all right, so we'll go to the legislative update.
Emily, do you have that in the?
Sure, yeah,
in
we
the
just,
book?
put in the end of session how we did on our legislative agenda, and with tab B. We made great progress this year over last year. 2 of our proposals, number 2 and number 3, which were the, conforming changes to the Lobbying Act and penalties for lobbyists and clients. Although we didn't get them in the form we liked, we did get them. Those are both enacted, so those 2 came through, so successful. And then number 5 and 6, which was requiring electronic submission of all lobbying filings and posting the financial disclosure statement for candidates. They passed both houses, so hopefully the governor will sign them into law when they get sent to her sometime before the end of the year. It could take up to the end of the year to see that happen. And then we had various success with all the other bills. Most of them were in committee, and we had one eliminating the physical access requirement in OML. That passed the Senate this year, even though we know the 2-year extender went through. So for now, I know that's not going to change, but we've had good progress on our legislative agenda. So we'll be able to add additional things next year that we want to ask for.
Okay, thank you. Next item, tab F. Recent article in the Daily Gazette editorial acknowledging really great work that our investigation and enforcement group has been doing in achieving settlements in some key matters and recognizing the significance both of achieving those settlements and also getting word out about them. This is the message that we as a commission have been trying to communicate from inception. Emily and her team have been working very hard to have media pick up on the messaging we're sending. And this is may not be the most widely distributed outside of our agency. It's widely distributed within our agency for sure. But it's important. And everyone on this commission should feel really good about the fact that the message is resounding in that way. In the years I've been doing this, I haven't seen this kind of positive feedback. So this is really good. I should say, other than the decision of the Court of Appeals in the Homo case, acknowledging the importance of the work this commission does and why we're in the unique position that we are. So I thank them. I especially thank commissions supporting the work of staff, particularly the investigation and enforcement unit and the superb work that they do.
Congratulations.
Well, I agree with that. And to the fact that the information is being communicated. Thank you to Emily and her staff as well.
Great work.
All right. Next item, the preliminary lobbying data report, which I think was distributed to us. I think we got an email.
Yeah, unfortunately, wasn't in the book. I'll just do the introduction and turn it over to Emily. Since first part of last year, the lobbying group working with the communications division have been putting out preliminary lobbying data. Historically, the ethics and lobbying agencies in the state have put this data, collected the data and presented it in annual reports. Annual reports, for a variety of reasons, tend not to come out until almost the middle of the following year. And so the data, while really critical and really important, presented nonetheless comes off as a historical artifact. The data, in fact, as it's filed, is fully available to the public, but our system is not the easiest to use. Investigative reporters who are interested in running down stories and the like, can find the data. The public generally is not seeing how lobbying resources are being deployed and what their effects are. And so what we've been doing is, as soon after the close of each bi-monthly reporting period, and each client's at the end of the reporting period, take the raw data. It hasn't been verified. Carol and her team haven't had the time to reconcile the inevitable discrepancies that exist between what clients are filing and what their lobbyists filing. So it's pretty much raw data. Nonetheless, directionally, it shows what's going on. We thought it would be important to take a look at this one in particular, because this year we've seen a trend that you wouldn't have seen until the middle of next year with the way the data is reported. Lobbying expenses, as opposed to fees paid to lobbyists or salaries paid to employed lobbyists, have tripled this year. That's pretty significant, and maybe somewhat startling to us. But you wouldn't have seen it unless we put out this report.
Yeah, and this month we added, because we were seeing that, we added a chart that normally wouldn't be in there. So one of our candidate reports, we went in and kind of looked at the data that shows who the clients are, because typically we don't have client data until the 6-month mark, but you can get it out of the bi-monthly. So we just manipulated the data a little bit and got the information out of the bi-monthlies. And people have been asking for that too, like, well, who's spending the money? So we'll include that. This time we focused on expenses because that was what was really driving the increase. So that was an interesting point, but we'll be including some client data in our bi-monthlies going forward as well, since the people, reporters and others have been asking us for. So we figured out a way to do it.
And if you match that information against some of the outcomes in this past legislative session, you can kind of figure out what the impact of spending has been, both for and against legislation. It's not as granular, maybe as one would like. New York is somewhat unique in that a good deal of substantive legislation becomes part of budget bills. And so a lot of reporting that we get is subsumed in budget bill attributions. But there's other data in there that's indicative. So we're going to continue doing this. It takes a fair amount of work. Having an on-staff data specialist, Kathy Kaufman, has been very, very helpful
Who works
to make
with
this
closely
possible.
with Carol's shop, Amy and Carol's shop.
Yeah.
And a tremendous amount of work that Carol's people are doing in making sure that the data makes sense.
It's a good like agency-wide collaboration between lobbying, data, and communications to get it all out.
Yeah. It's a lot of work, but I think the effort is paying off. And we do get positive feedback from the folks who are paying attention to this data. So we thought it was important to point that out.
On that note too, we also got out our annual report, I think, since the last meeting, and we had some positive stories on that. The Buffalo News article really did a comprehensive assessment of what was in the report, everything from FDS's to lobbying discrepancies for Western New York. So that was a really great article. We worked closely with that reporter. He's definitely tuned to what we're doing and looks for things to write about, which is great.
That's the report that used to be with the Time Union.
Yeah. Okay.
It's been a busy couple of months. It's and again,
Commissioner Caroline.
Commissioner Carvalho has a question?
And yeah, in the columns, when you refer to compensation, what does that refer to?
That's the amount paid to lobbyists
So rather than like on advertising, it's the amount actually paid to the lobbyist or that their in-house lobbyist is attributed to. So rather than like
That seems low,
advertising
though.
or,
Is their fees separate from their expenses?
Right.
I'm sorry.
The compensation is, what a client pays their retained lobbyists, the compensation to lobby for them. And then for the in-house lobbyists, it's, your salary. And some of those in-house lobbyists do other things too. So it could be a portion of their salary or maybe all of their salary. So it's basically it's compensation, what you're paid at, almost like in a salary, either retained or employed.
Okay,
As
thank
opposed to
you.
expenses that are more like, advertising, the media campaigns you see on TV or on billboard or those are
social
like
media,
social media, any of those types of expenses.
lobby days.
Lobby days, the t-shirts they buy, all of those things are expenses, so. And a lot of money is spent on expenses because a lot of money is spent on the media campaigns, as you might imagine, all of the the big campaigns, and probably the most money sometimes for some clients is spent on expenses. Most people spend most of their money on compensation. But the big client spenders have these big campaigns, and those are mostly expense related.
I see. Thank
Yeah,
you.
if you look at the report, you'll see that at the upper end, it's proportionally not more, but a higher proportion is going to expense than at the lower levels
For
of
the top
lobbying
client
activity.
spenders.
Yes, yeah, top client spenders.
And in particular, and so far this year, again, expenses have soared compared with
Last year.
prior years, any prior year we look at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is well, there are no reports from the chair, nor from the committees. So we can move to the next item. Close the funding exam. I think we have some legal issues to discuss with that, so we'll do that in an executive session and then come back to this. Both rulemaking.
I would suggest that we take those up first to an executive session.
So we'll do 6 and 7 in executive session and return to the public session.
Yes.
The next item is the comprehensive review, part 2.
What happened? Oh, presentation.
And everyone, you have in the book, but I've also had printed out so much, easier to read version of this spreadsheet. The spreadsheet that's in the book, and we'll go through some slides, details for lobbying activity, and these are out of order a little bit. Because Carol's not going to be available for our next meeting, we'll keep moving on this. We've moved up the lobbying potential proposal. So it was a discussion. As we did last month, putting together sections of what we conceive of as a comprehensive report by the commission, following its comprehensive review is called for by section 1. Subsection 1, section 94 of the executive law, which calls for the commission to conduct a comprehensive review. Statutes, it administers its regulations, its advisory opinions, and its operations. And broadly speaking, for consistency across those bodies of law, and also the effectiveness overall of the ethics and lobbying programs that we administer. As we said last time, and I didn't You have in your books from the last meeting, the preliminary sections in draft form of the comprehensive review. So we're now looking at what is going to be the fourth section of the report. The first section of it is an introduction. Second is the lobbying regulation based historically. Third section explains the comprehensive review process. And the fourth is making a preliminary assessment, looking at each of our substantive and adjective areas of review. Last time, 6, that leaves us with lobbying activity and regulation, training, and financial disclosure. And also, as I said last time, and we can go to the slides now.
I didn't know if you just wanted to spend a little time on the process, because we've
Yeah.
got some new commissioners who weren't present, weren't part of the body.
That's exactly where I am. In the process and where we're going to the slides. So what we have been doing, essentially since the inception of the commission, we started out initially conforming all of the commission's bodies of regulations, and it took 7 or 8 months to complete the process. But we conformed all of the commission's regulations from Part 930 through Part 943 to the requirements and the dictates of ECRA and to the amendments that were made in the Lobbying Act along the way. And that was kind of step one of bringing everything into conformity. After that, we have that are in the comprehensive review section of the executive law into each of our annual public hearings, asking for feedback on the bodies of law that we administer and the way we operate and the perception of our effectiveness. In last year's annual public hearing, we put it in front of the public and asked them to comment on guiding questions that seen before and that we're going to go through today. And we've asked for comments as well on the specific potential proposals that staff has crafted for consideration by the public and ultimately by the commission as ways to improve the way we do our work and the effectiveness of our work. In addition, we commissioned 2 surveys. We worked with an organization called Evolve Marketing to reach out to the entire lobbying community. Over 10,000 recipients got the survey. We separately reached out to what I'll call the ethics community, consisting of leadership and ethics officers in every agency in the executive branch, as well as the law firms, various bar associations, good government groups, law enforcement agencies, very, very wide net. And we've incorporated, commission has had presentations on the takeaways from those 2 surveys. In addition, we conducted an internal staff assessment, asking essentially the same questions to get input from staff on the way we do our work and how it can be done better. At the same time, the commission has been pursuing its legislative agendas in each of the past 3 years. The agenda hasn't changed much, except that now we've gotten some of our proposals adopted by the legislature. We have the same basic initiatives, and we continue doing that. We foresee that once we complete the comprehensive review process, we'll be incorporating the takeaways from that, the proposals from that, into the commission's legislative agendas. And with that, I should add that staff has not been standing still while the process is continuing. So there are numerous changes and adjustments that staff has made in processes and the way we communicate information, and adaptations of our of our operating procedures to take into account the input that we've gotten, both externally and internally, about the way we do business. So you can see in the 2024, 2025, created and implemented survey response plans, performed selective federal and local state comparisons. We had, as I said, the staff effectiveness assessment. And last summer, all of that culminated in the preliminary proposals that we then put out to the public in our annual public hearing. And the spreadsheet that, coming all the way back to the spreadsheet that you have reflects the input that we got on those proposals. We have other input we received in the course of the public hearings, but here are the specific responses that we received to those proposals. Any questions?
And that's in tab J, right?
What?
The proposal you're referring to is in tab J.
It's tab J, but there's also, you should have the legal size spreadsheet, right?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Which has the same proposals, but in more readily accessible.
Yeah, I can just put a little color too on the survey response plans, because we just did for the annual report assess kind of how those went and were implemented, and across lobbying, ethics, training, and communications, we implemented 60 different tasks to respond to things that we got out of the survey for all the stakeholders, and that included adding and creating several trainings for Carol's unit, looking at the ethics guidance pages, and linking all the relevant advisory opinions, creating FAQ documents for questions that we get, and working with the training unit to help them get out more communication to their audiences directly.
Is this a document we've seen?
It was in the annual report.
Oh, okay.
You saw the plans
Yeah.
that we were all gonna do, so just to follow up, we did implement all of those in 2025, and in like Carol's group, for instance, we saw a good response in the number of people looking at the trainings, and hope that the decrease in inquiries was partly driven by the amount of trainings and materials that we got out to the lobbying community.
Any questions? So staff has been extremely busy. I know commissioners have been busy with us, and we would like to think, I believe it to be the case, that we have engaged communities that we regulate, as well as various business and good government groups in the process, at least to the extent that we've gotten a good deal of feedback on potential proposals by virtue of what we've done. What we'd like to do now is take you through, unless there's any other preliminary work, take you through first the guiding questions. We'll do lobbying first.
There's just one procedural question.
Yeah.
I saw in the minutes from the last meeting that the sort of next steps or that were identified were, it seemed like further discussion of the ethics questions raised by commissioners. And I was just wondering if there was any more conversation about what form that would take or what that would look like.
So last month with the ethics questions, it was more going through the conceptual, yes, we want to address these questions, but how to go through each one individually, whether it be regs or legislation, would have to be dealt with after the comprehensive review is done, as we draft regs. And
I meant more how this group is going to go about having the conversation about the ethics proposals.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, and the way, at least from staff's perspective, we conceive of it is we're taking the feedback, pro and con feedback that we're getting. We want to incorporate that into a draft report when we finish the process, which may include recommendations to add particular items to the legislative agenda, maybe proposals for rulemakings, regulations, maybe procedural changes in the way we do certain things. and then have the commission work through. Well, we may have to do that section by section. I'm kind of hoping that as a result of the discussions we're going to be having over the next couple of meetings, once discussion, we'll be able to receive comment on the integrated draft.
I
I
thought,
guess I'm having a,
I understood something a little different from last month's meeting, and commissioners are saying, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought commissioners approved conceptually those 7 recommendations.
Yep.
That would be included in the comprehensive review, but the detail would not be in the comprehensive review because that would take years. If we went through
No,
all
correct. The details not going to be.
60 proposals and tried to get them all sorted out.
No,
So-
the detail will not be there, but the last section is actually going to have the recommendations in it. It may not be the language, it may be draft proposed legislation implementing the changes.
Right. So
That-
not with the
It's
legislation
not,
itself.
yeah, we're not gonna, we're not gonna try to turn it into the equivalent of, to go beyond even our legislative agendas. We draft the language separately. So it wouldn't be the final version of each proposal. It would be
Right.
a direction to staff.
So it wouldn't
prepare
have, like, for
specific-
instance, language for regulations or like draft legislation. It would just direct staff to do it, and then the commission can prioritize which things they want staff to tackle.
but it's hard to do
When
that if you're
previously-
not part of the process. I'm just struggling with, how do we get involved to be able to know what we're recommending? So for example, while staff is going through each of these proposals, and I guess you'll be asking us to approve guiding questions that will lead that review. I feel like as commissioner, I'm on the tail end of that. And it's maybe difficult for me to make meaningful input if I'm looking at the outcomes and not participating in the process by which we work to get there. And we're at the tail end, affirming what you've already done.
No, it's not intended to be the tail end by any means. What we have done is, basically gone out with the guiding questions and potential proposals to shape the discussion. First couple of annual hearings, our surveys were more amorphous. So we've taken the feedback we've gotten
Okay,
and we've crystallized those into general proposals to be considered by commissioners as general proposals, to accept or reject, or have suggestions for modifying.
And include ones you have brought forth, right? So, I know, like, for instance, Vice Chair Ayers
Yes, as well as
has
input
had
from-
some proposals that she wanted added, and so those are reflected as well.
Absolutely. So to take all that input, and I previously circulated some of the archetypes we're working from,
so the commission,
going all the way back to the fear commission.
but we won't be involved in looking at individual proposals. We'll be looking at staff's review of that and coming back with recommendations. We're not involved with the process. We're involved with reviewing the process that the staff took, right?
We're taking all.
You have all the
I
proposals.
don't think that's exactly what we have.
Yeah.
On the contrary, the idea is to put in front of you drafts that are distillations of the feedback we've gotten, including our own feedback, some input from staff as well into the process, and putting in front of you proposals to consider.
So we're
Right,
in the process to reconsider.
Yes,
I
right
think
now.
that
Yeah, yes,
you're
this is
considering
what
whether or not
we're
you
doing
want to move
now,
forward
and
with
even that's not
proposals.
final, because I expect that after we pull all of this together into a draft report, we're not going to present it as a fait accompli. We're going to ask commissioners.
I guess, I think Vice Chair Ayers' question was, how are we discussed the guiding questions on ethics.
Mhm.
And how are the commissioners going to discuss what the recommendations would be before you prepare this draft
Right.
report?
Well, the
That's what we're doing
recommendations
now.
were,
We can't
for
do that
ethics,
now
we
at a
did
meeting.
last week. We did last meeting.
Yeah, we didn't just do the guiding question. We did
We
the
went
guiding
through them
questions.
one by one.
And then we had the responses based upon the input that we received.
Those are the responses from the public, not the responses from
No, the spreadsheet has the responses from the public proposals that were put in front of them, and now we're putting the proposals in front of you.
I can't give you any meaningful feedback with this kind of information at this state. I mean, this came in the board book. I wasn't part of it. It's not a summary of what we did. It's a summary of what you've done, and I don't feel close enough to it to make a comment. It seems to me, as a commissioner, I'd like to have a session to discuss one proposals or whatever amount of proposals you think we can absorb in one session. If it takes 7 sessions, then that's what it
this
takes.
is
That's what we're
supposed to
doing.
be.
So this is
because
session 1 for
this is-
proposal 1,
2, this is session 2, because we
for
did it
proposal 1.
for lobbying, so I'm not
For
looking at the
proposal
spreadsheet. For the lobbying proposals, we're talking about them today. Last meeting, we talked about the ethics proposals.
But in terms of the process, when will we be discussing the recommendations that we want to consider
So
for
those were,
the ethics, and then after
so
we
we
get
did that
about the
last
lobbying?
month. You put before you were the recommendations as well as the questions last month, and we went through them.
But we didn't discuss them.
No,
And we didn't have,
it was a framework we approved you moving forward with.
Right, so
It wasn't a
and what we
discussion.
said at the time was we wouldn't be discussing what it would be in the detail of a regulation or what would be in the detail of a legislative proposal until we move to talk and implement. And then, like, as you would with any regs or any legislative proposal, go through the processes that we already have in place to talk about those. I'm hearing that you're rethinking that might not be adequate, but Commissioner.
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, I thought there was going to be a step in here where we had what staff thought as well. And we were going to be able to see, well, this is what the public and the groups are saying. This is what staff is saying. Where do we all land? And like, to give an example, here we have make accessorial accomplice liability explicit for lobbying act violations. And then we have a group saying, this is dangerous, especially for associations whose members may misinterpret, misunderstand a rule or regulation, and it could become a disincentive for associations to provide guidance to their members. That seems like a legitimate concern to me. So what is staff's position? In other words, why does staff think we need this? What are examples of things we can't get at without lobbying accessorial liability? And why would that make it easier to get at those things? And then how do we weigh that against what the groups are saying? But if we don't have both sides of that,
We can't make this.
how are we going to even have
For
a
this-
discussion?
For this proposal, we've done that for about 3 years now, because it's been on our legislative agenda for 3 years. So we've had those discussions, we can revisit. And then we could do it now, or we could do it as part of our legislative agenda. But I see your concern that you want more input or more discussion among the commissioners about each kind of individual.
Right, where there's something we're asking for, like we should know what staff thinks the upside of changing that is, and what some examples are that we'll be able to do that we can't currently do. Otherwise, we can't sort of weigh it
The
against
need,
what
why
the
you
groups
want
are
the need for it.
saying,
No, I hear what
you
you're saying.
know.
Because,
No,
What about your,
I'm
I have a question. I don't know if you can see me.
okay, just a second, Commissioner Carvalho, Vice Chair, and
Sure.
then Commissioner Carvalho, and then Commissioner Goldberg.
so yeah, I mean, consistent with what others have been saying, you know, the document that I see from last time on ethics, it's not proposals, it's discussing issues that maybe should be addressed. So for example, in the ethics section, there's a paragraph about travel being paid by somebody outside of government. And the paragraph says the question has been raised, basically whether we should revisit the rules on that. That's not a thing for us to vote on. That's an issue that's been raised. So I feel like very much along the lines of what Commissioner Karras was just saying, for me, what I would need to vote on
That's a good
something is a proposal that we could circulate, an opportunity for us to hear staff's views on it, and an opportunity for commissioners to say, I have a different idea from what we saw. And then, much like Commissioner Caraballo's done with the legislative committee, where we bring issues forward. And I'm not proposing that we send it to any specific committee or that there's a way to do that, but I think that, if the comprehensive review is going to produce a slate of proposals that's benefiting from all of this fantastic work that's been done to gather opinions and ideas from people, that at some point, we're going to need the commissioners to say, all right, what's the proposal and what are the ups and downs? And that's not what the document in front of us
No,
is.
so that's what I was referring to before. That would take years to do with every proposal. So so it's more, are we making the comprehensive review plan, the suggestions that we're going to focus on for the next 5 years, prioritized by the commission, that we're going to have those discussions, right? So whatever priorities, we could tackle 2 or 3 at every meeting. Or do you want to wait for the whole comprehensive review and not finish it until we have all those discussions, which again, I think in our mind is like a 3 to 5 year thing. So I guess that's kind of where it is. Do you want the comprehensive review to be the conceptual thing to guide our work for the next 3 to 5 years, where we're going to get into the nitty gritty and discuss all these things? Or do you want to wait until the end thing and say, here's all the stuff we did?
I'd like to see this a living
Okay,
document.
Commissioner
Oh,
Conway.
sorry.
Can I let, Ms. Quinn speak?
So just to give like some texture now, these are like concepts and, I wasn't necessarily, I wasn't totally involved in all of this, but I can give you an example for number 7 on whatever page this is,
You're looking at the.
no,
Lobbying
yeah,
activity.
so it's the one that says lobbying activity proposal part 2, number 7.
Page 11.
Okay. It talks about part 938 sorts of funding regulations. So the concept there is, do we need some clarity and some provisions that should be amended to clarify source of funding regulation? And the source of funding law is very, somewhat vague. And so 938 was written and it's very detailed, but I think a few things that need to be, some loopholes perhaps that have been created. So I would suggest that I would look at those, and I can give you examples of things that I'm concerned about, but look at those, and then we would come forward with, this would be, look at source of funding regulation and find any provisions that need clarity and put forth the rulemaking, suggestion. And again, that would come back to you in a regular process. This would be, clarify this. It could be as broad as clarify the source of funding regulations, or it could be a little more granular, and I can, give you some examples of things that I think should be clarified. Maybe total expenditure the definition should be more clear. What does that mean? Things like that I could give you like in concept, but it would take me a minute to figure out what the language could be. So I think what Emily's trying to describe here is this is like a concept, again, globally, clarified 938.
Like, what do we want to look at?
In other words, we're
What we're
creating
gonna
a
look at.
gigantic to-do list.
Yes,
That's what this is.
yes.
What we're
Yes.
trying to do is take a comprehensive global approach to improving the work that we do, both in dealing with conflicts of interest and ethics generally, in state government, the areas of our jurisdiction, and the same kind of approach to lobbying. And rather, the commission can do its day-to-day work. Michael has proposals, Carol has lots of proposals for little things we can fix, but we want to take an integrated approach to it. But we don't want that goal, I don't think we should allow that goal to get in the way of actually getting work done. And if we try to put together the encyclopedia of ethics and lobbying regulation, it'll be a great work, 20 years from now. I don't know how long Dieter Rowe put his together. It'll be great at the end of it, and we'll have a great plan out there. But the time may have passed. What we want to do is have an integrated template that takes a broad brush look at everything. So we want to improve regulation here. We want to tighten these regulations. There's inconsistency in that, and here's the plan. This is what we're going to be focusing on going forward at the individual level. And if you look at again, the predecessor report said, you know, we're not the first agency that's been charged with taking this task on. Some didn't last long enough to complete it or even start it. But we have enough information now, I think, to at least say, yeah, that's generally a good idea. Let's go off and start working on that. But we want to take an overall approach. We want to improve lobbying regulation. Part 938 has issues and other aspects of lobbying law and regulation that we'd like to tighten up as well. And rather than doing the hit or miss kind of things that we currently do, that every agency does, and I don't need to put it in the pejorative, that's how things work. But because it's comprehensive, the idea is to pull it all together. We don't have a time limit, unfortunately. You know, Jacob had a 3-year time limit to put their report together. And you come out of it with conceptual, more or less. Conceptual is maybe not exactly the most precise word, but the things that you want to fix going forward, not necessarily each of the precise fixes. And at any point, if it's going in the wrong direction, or commissioners don't like it, or staff have concerns to raise with commissioners, course corrections can be made, but at least we want the ship to be going in a direction that we all think is the correct direction to take this project.
And I see it as kind of, this is like step one in our strategic planning process, like that should become like an annual thing, like we do with the legislative agenda. You know, we talk about those, what proposals will be on the legislative agenda, we get feedback, and we develop the agenda for what we're going to focus on in the next year. So I see that this could be how we kind of develop that going forward, as well as what regulations and what other things we as a commission and an agency want to focus on in the coming year. So, you know, out of all of the things that we've come up with, what are our priorities for the year and what should staff be focusing on, you know, driven by what the commission thinks.
Let me come back to the example that Commissioner Terrace raised, accessorial liability. Standing alone, that's a really important concept, the idea that those who aid and abet should have some kind of liability. And it's a problem for us, and we can go into detail, but it's one thing in the larger body, talking about lobbying regulation. Maybe we can appeal where we don't have to worry about accessorial liability. Maybe that's why it's not there, because whoever conceived of the scheme thought it would work without it. But maybe they were wrong, and now we have to put it back in. But if we take it out separately, yeah, we could have discussions about the wisdom or wisdom of having accessorial liability and the pros and cons. But we want to look at it in the context of lobbying regulation, and the same thing on conflicts of interest. We have the same proposal, and where does that fit in the larger scheme of things, as opposed to as a separate issue? In our legislative agenda, we're tackling individual priority issues. But the point, I think, of comprehensive review, of calling it a comprehensive review, is that it's supposed to take a much broader look at what we're doing. But again, I don't think we can solve it all in one report. But we can establish a direction that we're going to go.
Mr. Gorham?
Thought I had 2 issues, but I listened to this, I think even more. I think one of my big problems has been is that going back to the document we were given prior to the last public hearing, which I think came as a surprise to some of us. I know it did to me. But I remember talking with you, Emily, about, I think there were 47 proposals in that. Now we're dealing with 60 proposals. And my big concern is nobody's ever given me a prioritization of what the real issues are. I mean, we've got 60 things out there. That's an enormous workload. Yet I haven't heard what's the highest priority. And yet there are these perennial issues that crop up. The one about, who mentioned paying for travel and like that's been an issue for a couple of years now. And I think we're making a mistake by, I appreciate the need for our decision-making to be in a very large context, but to the extent that's going to preclude us from doing things for years, that seems to not be serving anybody very well.
No, I'm just,
But if I-
apologize for
I mean-
interrupting. That's, no, it's not to prevent us. As I've said, staff has been working on implementing, needs that have evolved from the work that we've done so far and addressing them. So the idea is not to put things off, but to bring this part of the process to a close so that we can start focusing in a integrated global way in addressing issues. But that doesn't mean proposal A can't move forward unless it's lost step with Z. Doesn't mean that by any means. And certainly that's not what I'm suggesting. I don't think anyone has that in mind.
We
Then I,
haven't prioritized yet, right? This is everything.
We've talked about, we're not planning to come out with, the FURIC Commission, sort of my mouth, wanted to come out with a master piece of legislation. That's not what we're doing. We're not looking toward having the legislature and adopt and the governor approve some new version of ethics regulation. We're not looking to replace the Lobbying Act. We're looking at making a series of related adjustments to both of those schemes.
I understand that.
Okay.
But my second point related to the extent we've been in this information gathering phase from all the public hearings, the various surveys and the like. In my opinion, that's all well and good, but what I think is most valuable to us as commission members is the day-to-day and long expertise of the staff. That is more meaningful than anything else. And that you see the problems every day. You know all the arguments, you can evaluate everything we hear. That's the most important thing to me. And to the extent, I don't think we always get the full benefit of that, even when we're trying to decide these more global issues, leaves us feeling like there's a lot of duplication here of a process that isn't really advancing. And when I hear you say it'll take too long, I would say, well, that right there should make us question, are we doing something that's really useful? I don't think the statute told us to prepare a report. It just said we were to do a comprehensive review. To the extent it doesn't say that. And I thought it was odd when I read last month's materials where there was this extensive history on ethics laws in New York State. And I'm thinking, that's already been written. We don't need to rewrite that. That little blue book that was produced by Jacob, that's an excellent publication. It seems to me updating some of that would have great value, but it seems.
We're doing that as well.
It's on the list.
But is it in here in the comprehensive
Not-
review? See, I think there's a lot of we
So
don't,
that's operational.
well,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I'm pretty good at conceptualizing, but when you say that's operational, how are you defining operational from
So this
some
is
procedural,
like, regulatory and legislative.
only that?
That's what's in here now. A lot of operational things that came out, we have been implementing because it was needed in the moment, right? Like we needed to coordinate better between the different divisions. We needed to break down the silos. We needed to, so we've been doing that. And there's definitely a lot of other things on the list on how to, look at the issue of getting more people to timely file their FDSs and how that needs to be a collaborative unit, that's something we're gonna look at. The way, I guess, so I totally hear what you're saying about staff and I'm happy to do this at any point, but the way I envision it, I like to break big things down into tangible chunks is like what we do with the legislative agenda. If you remember, we have the table, like here's the proposal, right? Here's what the group said about it. And here's what staff think. And there are a lot of times when staff is like, no, like we cannot do this, or yes, we need to do this, right? So I was thinking that would come when we get to the substance, right? So like we all know we need to fix this. How we're gonna fix it, we're not sure yet. And And that would be the next step, because in my mind, I'm thinking we have to get this report done at some point. We can't just let it be out there. But if commissioners are thinking they want to change that process or that a full report isn't needed, open for a discussion. But I'm just letting you know, like, kind of where I saw it kind of going, like, we would definitely get to that point, but it's just now we're agreeing on all the things we need to take the deeper dive into.
I guess, and I will, because I'm one of a handful that have been here since day one. I guess I never appreciated that we were going to have a report per se. I thought we were going to do a review, and we were going to do a review of different things. Commissioner Ayers has long talked about a review of the regs, just to convert them to plain language. It seems to me that that was a great proposal. But
Right, and that's
we
in
have,
here, and we're trying to do that as we do regs too, right? So as regs come before you, with that in mind, when we change them, we're also updating them for the plain language, because we don't want to come back and change them twice.
well, I understand that you don't want to change them twice, but going back to when that plain language discussion first started, I remember Commissioner Ayers gave us a lot of, because it's a pet project of hers, and I think it's a great one. But she gave us some basic information that could be guiding principles, because it seems to me before we should just agree on the plain language rules we want to implement, and then they should just be, make sure staff doesn't see a problem with them, and then think about how we would do that. So we don't wait forever to do this. But I think we could be seen as just pushing a can or a ball down the road without any concrete end in sight. I mean, no, that I take that back. There's an end in sight. It's just that it's so far-sighted that for anybody who has a 4-year term that's about to expire, you think, wow, how many terms will expire before there's meaningful review? And I mean, I look around this table, there's people that come at all different times, and if we have to keep going back to hear the history going back to day one, when the cast of characters around this table is constantly changing, I do think we need a different process for moving the most important discussions to the top of the list, and most importantly, unequivocally, be guided by staff, not by what the good government groups think. That's the job of this agency. We routinely collect the input. We know what it is. It hasn't changed a lot probably since the earth cooled. And I think it's not going to change. So it becomes incumbent upon the commission as the agency to get the commission as the body to focus on the greatest priorities and do them. I guess that's my frustration with the process.
Commissioner Carabao?
Thank you. So, it's a little confusing because a lot of this is on the legislative agenda and has been, vetted by the legislative agenda committee and brought to the commissioners. I would say of these 28 proposals, 9 of them are legislative agenda proposals, many of which are already on the agenda. One of which we had proposed to be on the committee proposed that we adopt for the legislative agenda, that was pulled off because it was going to be part of this comprehensive review. And I understood that the argument was that if we put together a big package, it might go faster or better. But I really do believe this is a little, as far as the legislative agenda proposals go, I think it properly should continue to be in the legislative agenda committee and treat it the way we have been treating it. I mean, as you mentioned, and as your report showed, Emily, Director Sanchez, two of the proposals have passed. two of them have gone through the Senate and the Assembly, and one passed the Senate. I don't understand why they would be on this review separately, and I would urge that they continue, that they stay at the legislative agenda proposals and with the committee as they have been. So I don't understand why they're,
That's the
What?
intent. That's the intent. So
okay,
there isn't like our start date for doing the comprehensive review is really, when we were formed. Like, as we said, we go back to when the first round of reg changes happened before my time in 22, early 23. So we're not proposing to take anything off the legislative agenda at this point. Definitely not. But we don't want to lose sight and say, just kick those to the curb. We want to again say, okay, here's what was on our legislative agenda last year. Let's take off the things that we got done. And here's all the things that we have that would require legislation, right? And so in year one, what does the commission through the committee want to focus on? And then that comes back and we can do the analysis at that point of all the proposals to say, okay, this is what staff considers a priority out of these. And then the committee could look at it and then it could come to the commission, as we've been doing.
which is what we do, right? So I don't
yeah.
get why they would be on this comprehensive review. And to Nancy's point, I think the other proposals here, some of them are regulatory proposals that we have been working on, and some language has been drafted for those. And maybe it's worthwhile to have a committee of the commission separately dealing with the regulations and the proposals that are regulatory or require regulatory changes to address the concern from the commissioners about their involvement in this. I think that might be a good way to work this out, because we have the legislative agenda committee already, maybe forming a regulatory committee to deal with to discuss and with staff and with committee members and then present to the commission. I think that would be a good way to move this forward.
One thing I want to just respond to is I think we could, rather than taking out the things that we've done, right, and focus on, because that's important. We don't want to lose that. We could separate them and say, here's the new proposals and here's the ones that, have already been on our legislative agenda, and have it like in different sections. So if we want to focus on the new ones, we focus on the new ones, knowing that the other ones have either gone through or they're still on the legislative agenda. So that might avoid some of the same thing with the regulations, like things that have already been implemented or proposed or that are in the works versus brand new ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be easy to draw those kinds of demarcations in the proposals.
Commissioner Walcott. So getting back to Vice Chair Ayer's question. What is, I guess, how do you intend to address the commissioner's involvement in answering the questions that were presented about ethics? So, I mean, is it your plan to go through each segment and identify all the questions?
Yes. I mean,
And then we'll come back, to answering the questions?
we will take the feedback for or against, commission may say, no, we don't want to pursue that. We have more questions about it.
But we haven't been giving feedback about. The only feedback we've been given is whether we want to look at these issues, but in terms of how to address them, there's been no discussion. And I think
Correct.
that's what
We got to those
Commission
issues.
Vice Chair is suggesting. What is the plan for us to actually have those discussions? Is it after everything is presented, or should we, as Nancy said, start prioritizing and looking at some of these issues?
No, I think the only sensible way, from my perspective, to have an integrated approach, at least an integrated proposal from staff, is to give us such feedback as you can give us at this point. Let us pull it all together into what I see as a unified proposal. That does report, rather, not proposal. How things evolve after that will depend on a lot of things, but at least have an overview of what the issues are and what potential proposals are for addressing those issues in one document. And then the commission can decide what changes, if any, you want to make in it. And if there are specific questions about specific proposals, some may on their face be obvious, others may be less so, and may require more or less discussion or treatment. And then we have an end product. Because I think if we start breaking it up, and maybe the commission can come to the conclusion it's hogwash. There's no reason to have a comprehensive review. We can just look at these things in a disintegrated way and say, that sounds like a good idea, or that's a bad one, or did you think of whatever? And as issues come up, we'll just deal with them. Or we could try to say, this is the objective of lobbying regulation. This is the objective and the goal of ethics regulation. This is what, from staff's perspective, based on all the input we've gotten, we think would work to improve the overall scheme. These proposals maybe have merit, others don't. Put them all in front of you, and you'll have it all in front of you. If you think then you have to go back and send things out to other committees, you could do that. I don't think that's going to be necessary. I think we can present you with a full package that you can then respond to.
But there's no involvement of the commission.
Yeah, can I offer an alternative that I
Yes.
think I'm just hearing?
I'm not sure what you mean by involvement, because if we want to go back, commissions has
Right.
been involved, as I see it, in the entire process
It has,
from
We don't feel
the
that way.
beginning. No, I understand there's a different view.
I'm hearing that commissioners want more upfront involvement, and I liked what Commissioner Caraballo said about a regulatory committee and a legislative committee. It seems like there's a process for the legislative committee, but right now, and we could duplicate that for regulations, but it would have to involve a bigger kind of lens, if you will, where, we have to focus on each, like one day we do lobbying and regs, one day we do lobbying and legislation, right? We're not going to get through everything and prioritize that way. Just throwing it out there as an alternative to get commissioner feedback. You were jumping at the bit, go right ahead.
Well, I always start twitching when I hear the word committee. So.
I keep saying, like,
Understand
we
what-
needed a committee now.
Yeah. I like the idea of the big picture view. I like the discussion around, it's clear to me that as a committee, what I'm hearing is we don't feel involved enough. We want to be empowered to make good informed decisions. And I don't feel that we're getting that right now. I don't believe that we ought to have another committee. I go back to Commissioner
You can call me Nancy.
Nancy.
It's easy.
Her point about this is really a full commission discussion. And while I don't think there should be a committee, I think there needs to be more time where commissioners have the time to entertain each proposal and to understand staff recommendations on how it should be prioritized. We should identify we should come to consensus on those X number of priorities that we should encounter and agree to do it over X period of time. And then so that becomes a living document. I agree with Nancy that it shouldn't be a situation where it'll take for so long to complete, it becomes outdated. But if it's a living document and we agree every 3 years, this is what we want to look at, then I would feel more comfortable with that. And I think we should do it as a commission, and we can't do that as an agenda item at a meeting. We need to have, I don't know how we do it, but we need to have an opportunity to have a one agenda item to discuss the comprehensive review.
Yeah, we have to do it at a meeting.
Well,
Does it have to be in public
like
session?
outside of, I think she means outside of the once a month meetings, like
Right.
schedule an
Right.
extra
Right.
special meeting.
Right.
Nancy?
I
And
think
then
when,
Ava.
the word I keep hearing is that the commissioners don't feel like they're involved. I think I would say I don't feel informed. and that things get put in front of me as issues, but I don't have the full information in front of me. I need to know, this is the proposal, this is the argument for it, this is the argument against it.
Right.
And arguments against it would include just the cost of implementing some of these things. Things that can make it unrealistic have to figure in there too. And these documents don't need to be treatises. They can be good conceptual lists. I mean, that's done so often anyway. I still go back to the very best work product I ever remember seeing coming out of one of the public hearings was after, I think, the first one.
Yeah.
Where there was this, it was basically that. There was the proposal, and there was the pro and the con, and it was really clear and
Right.
neat, and you could move through it.
And staff driven.
And staff driven. And one question I would ask is, of the 60 proposals, has anybody on the staff ever said, how many would staff vote right now are no-goes? Because if they're no-goes, chances are we're going to agree with you. The frequency with which the commission members have not agreed with staff is very limited. If anything, I think it's always information. It's great for us, but I think we get far too little of that good background information in sufficient time before we're asked to discuss. And I think that's the biggest concern I have.
This is sort of agreeing with what everybody's saying. I feel like I'm now aware that there are two separate things that commissioners could be more or less involved in or informed about. There's the overall planning of what issues we want to address. And it sounds like that's what the document in front of us is really about. It's not a set of proposals. It's a set of questions that we're at. And as Emily said, to address all of them will surely take years. We've seen proposal by proposal how long it takes to have a legislative committee meeting. And, in an hour, you can usually get one meaty proposal talked about with the level of detail that I think commissioners want before they vote on a proposal. That's the kind of understanding we have. So if this is 60 or more proposals, yeah, we're talking about years. I don't personally feel any need for more involvement in developing that list than I see us having. Right? In other words, if the document is what's the list, well, great, we can because that's a living document anyway. It's not like in the future somebody's going to say, hey, wait, this new issue just came up. I really think we need to address that. So, oh, no, it wasn't in the scoping document. So we're not going to, right? We're a living, breathing body. We're going to continue to do that. What I do think I disagree with strongly, Sandy, if I understood you right, is I think if it's going to take us another few months to get that scoping document done, I think it would be a mistake to say of any given proposal, oh no, we better not address that until we think about all our priorities. It may be a challenge to know what we should do at our next meeting, like what Dolly's legislative committee should take up next, because there's so many proposals out there. But doing nothing would be worse. Right. And in fact, I don't think that's what anybody's suggesting. There are things that I don't think the plain language proposal, which I'd love to get voted on before I leave the commission, whenever that is. I don't think it's particularly going to affect other proposals. I think I haven't even finished writing it up yet, so that's on me, but I bet we could do it pretty independently. And I know that there are other things that staff has suggested we're already moving forward with and we need to be thinking about. So I would suggest that the order of operations sounds like should be, on the one hand, Sandy and the staff can keep working on this overall scoping document. That's our list of issues that can be used to prioritize those issues. I think that's a great, I think everybody probably agrees. We should be thinking about all of our tasks in a comprehensive way so we can prioritize. But at the same time, whether it's through meetings at this body or extra meetings in addition to our monthly meetings that involve all commissioners or the legislative committee or what. I don't particularly care myself. I'm happy to defer to what others have strong feelings about. But I do think that work should go forward while we're doing this overall scoping process.
Yeah, and there's no reason for it not to, and I don't think we've ever suggested otherwise. What I would take exception to is allowing that to be the only approach, the disintegrated approach that we would take. Because I think it's an opportunity for this commission, again, to take an overall view of the mission of the agency and how best to implement it. And try to, as it's making all the adjustments it's making and addressing needs as they come up, at the same time, take that much broader view. And maybe the way to do it, instead of having these separate sessions, is let staff finish, and frankly, have the whole thing in draft in kind of form, breaking, pull it all back together, let you see all of it, and then we can decide how best to manage it from there. While everything else goes forward, continue doing legislative agenda, we'll continue making presentations to you on individual regulatory changes that we think need to be made in the near term. There's several in the book now. There are others that are in process. Some we've set aside for various reasons, and we can keep bringing those to you as we've been doing. We've never held back on any of them because we're doing the comprehensive review, and the work will always continue in parallel. It would be nice at some point, though, to understand where each of these pieces fit within a larger picture.
Would that include prioritizing this list?
Yeah, I
Staff
mean,
driven.
of course.
That
Yes.
staff would prioritize the list without our being involved in that?
No, it's not a priority. No, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. The point would be that commissioners would then, among other things, not only, but would certainly prioritize. That would be, to me, that's one of the culminations of the process. You know, for the commission to say these changes should be,
So your report will have a list of all the priorities that you've laid out here and ranking them in order of importance. Then you want us to agree on that moving forward?
we could do that. I hadn't thought of doing that.
Do you plan to
that
attack
it
all
could-
of them?
What?
You plan to attack all of them on these 19 pages? I don't know how many.
Oh, it's the conceptual draft is much longer than 19 pages. It's at this point, it's over 50 pages. But in terms of prioritizing,
You're prioritizing.
we
the
could have a
proposals.
section on prioritizing. That wouldn't, you know, if you want staff to do that, sure. I mean, I think organically that's going to happen anyway, but it makes sense to plan for it. Absolutely. We could prioritize those and the commission can, as a proposal, not as a fait accompli to the commission.
Well, and I guess for the benefit of Commissioners Walcott and Scott, several months ago, we were presented with, I guess, an overview of the comprehensive review. Right? And at that time, I think the commissioners decided that we needed to discuss these issues by area, one by one. And we weren't just going to look at the whole
Right.
presentation and approve it.
Right.
What we have been doing is coming up with a question for each area, but the commissioners have not had an opportunity to hear from staff as to how we want to address them. And for us to agree on what the recommendation should be. And I think that was the basis for
Right.
Vice Chair's question as to, well, what are we doing about the ethics? So I think this is my perspective, and it would be a commission decision, that we ought to be looking at each of the areas
Right.
and coming up with recommendations by area before we
Even move forward.
present this grand review.
Recommendations that differ from the proposals that are in there now, like,
No, the proposal, but we haven't discussed the proposal.
okay, I see.
No, I'm not saying we should come up with
Yeah.
different recommendations,
And a lot of
but we should be
That's
discussing what those
perspective on those
recommendations
Well,
are.
that was the plan. Yeah, I mean, the plan was, as we've discussed, to take these section by section or topic area by topic area and have the discussion of these proposals.
So I guess maybe question is, should we raise the questions in a particular area and then discuss how to approach, how to address them? Or should we take all 4 areas, identify all the questions and then go back?
It
Put a
sounds like we need to
recommendation
do
on the
more
floor.
homework.
Before we propose,
Say
put
again,
these
sorry.
proposals in front of you, like with more information.
These aren't proposals, though. These are questions.
Right.
This isn't a document with proposals in it.
Some might be proposals, sort of, and some are just sort of open-ended questions. Like, for
There are questions and that were posed by staff, and we asked for input on them. And then to guide the discussion, solely for the purpose of guiding the discussion and not just having a free from, well, what do you think we should do? Here's a question. What do you, and not being able to manage that process in order to have focused feedback for and against each of the proposals. Staff crafted proposals as a heuristic device more than anything else to get feedback from the public. And now we have that feedback and we're putting those same proposals in front of the commission with the feedback on the spreadsheet that we received. And asking commissioners, because you correctly pointed out last time, you didn't have input into crafting the heuristic device questions that we put to the public. And we didn't want to put them in front of you for decision or consideration until we could tell you what the public thought and what interest groups thought and what regulated communities thought about these proposals. Now we're coming back with you to look at those proposals, to tell us, yeah, pursue those, or we have the following questions. We can answer them now or not, or maybe we have to go back and do more homework or provide you with backup. You asked about accessorial liability. We have a lot of backup on that because it's been through the legislative agenda 3 times, and there's a prehistory that goes back 3 commissions in making that proposal because it was missing from the 1987 legislation. Okay. So, but some of these are fresh proposals. Some don't have that much hair on them. They're newer proposals. But what we were planning to do in each of these sessions is now get your feedback on the potential proposals. The guiding questions are there so you know the evolution of the proposals. And now we're asking you to ask us whatever questions you have and let us know whether you're for them or against them. If you're for them, then we would, at the end of this process, or sooner if they're higher priority, try to flesh them out and put them into either real legislative proposals to be considered by Commissioner Caraballo's committee, or as regulations to be considered by the group as a whole, or if there's going to be a regulation committee by the regulation committee. Or reject it. So take it off the table. We don't want, we think this is not a useful way to, or you haven't persuaded us that there's an issue that this is properly addressed. But that's what I thought we were doing at these meetings, and we pulled this all together. But if, as Emily suggested, we need to go back and you want backup for each of these proposals with a discussion, we can do that. I would prefer to find out which ones of these potential proposals you want that kind of backup for before we go back and start writing up essays or white papers on each of these
What I'm
We're not
many
asking for white
proposals.
papers.
Mr. Karas, then Commissioner.
I'd like to go back to Commissioner Ayers' example on the, like, I thought last meeting that we were essentially, to use the example you used was paying for travel, that we were saying, let's look at this. I didn't hear, or maybe I didn't, maybe it was said and I didn't process it, what the problems with the current scheme were and what we were trying to address. Like the letters I've seen that, we review regularly don't seem particularly problematic to me.
It's not a good example because staff is not, that is a commissioner originating proposal. That is not a staff proposal. Staff is trying to address a concern that was raised by one or two commissioners. So it's hard for us to even speak in support of it.
Yeah, but
But pick one that originated with staff, and then, that would be.
no, no, because you have proposals that originate from commissioners too.
Yeah.
And so that's why you need not just an issue flagging document, but also for an issue like that, commissioners need to be engaged to say, does anybody want to pursue a proposal?
Right, just what does staff think of this?
Right.
I don't have a proposal
Right.
in my
Just
mind.
that type of reaction.
Right.
Yeah, it's not, there
Right.
were some commissioners who are no longer here who had views on what the proposals should be. There were other commissioners, like myself, who thought, I'm not sure what the rules should be, but I don't think the current regulatory structure works that well or is that easy to navigate, and it should probably be revisited. And so flagging the issue is an important first step, but then it's going to be some work. And I would be happy to, at some point, to be the commissioner who does this, to work with staff and say, here's the concerns I heard. Is there a way to fix this? What could work better? But it can't just be like, oh, a commissioner mentioned this, so it's on the list, and then that's the end of it. That's there's a scoping document or a document that to-do list sort of lists all the questions, and then there's, like Emily said, a few years of working through these issues, some of which may be very easy. The commissioner's reaction may be, Director Quinn knows what the fix is for this particular issue, and the work is just
Go fix
write
it.
it up and put it as we have today, issues on the agenda where none of the commissioners are going to want to get deeply engaged with having a pre-meeting conversation with Director Quinn about it. We're perfectly happy on
Right.
this issue to just look at it. But a lot of these 60 issues, I suspect, are of that nature. Dolly's committee need never engage. Others are going to consume us for multiple meetings and be extremely difficult, right? We know that. And so I think a scoping document is a very useful idea. It can help us prioritize how many of those big issues do we really have? What's the hard part of the to-do list, and what's the, for the commissioners, easy part of the to-do list that nonetheless takes a lot of work and therefore needs to be prioritized?
How is this different from the
Before
scoping document?
before we
Just so I understand.
No, but
the
I'm just saying
distinction.
it's a scoping document.
We're putting, might say, unless, just hear me for a second. You might say on a proposal, it doesn't appear that any commissioners have any strong views, and staff have a view. My response, for example, the example you used was, we don't have any views about it, but if commissioners think there's a potential issue, it will be part of the culmination of the process will be, this is something further, not to inhibit the production of the report, but rather the report would say, the commission concluded that this requires further study. Or another, maybe this is, a modification to part 938 on source of funding that should be addressed quickly, and the commission, recommends that
Yes, Cindy, my comment
staff
was
and the commission work together to come up with a rulemaking problem.
my comment was not disagreeing with your approach. It was explaining it or.
Oh, okay, so I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we're necessarily on a different page. But again, these are not being presented as fait accompli.
Okay.
These are being, except in the sense that these are the questions that we think have emerged.
To help me.
The commission may well have other questions that
I
they
guess-
want to put into the scoping document, if that's what we want to call it. And I don't have any problem with thinking of it in that way.
So when you say scoping document, I just get very overwhelmed with this large document, similar to the one we had, draft one. For me, a scoping document will be similar to what I think Keith put together when we were looking at one of the first or second hearings. Here's what the issue is. Here are the pros. Here are the cons. Here are the staff recommendations on a spreadsheet for each proposal so that we know. To me, that's a scoping document. Then it helps me make an informed decision about how we prioritize our list and then delegate the others to the appropriate committees, kill, put in the future, and it would disregard or put in the future. That to me is a scoping document.
Sure, and there's no reason as the culmination of this process, we would have pros and cons and.
So can we do it the way we
final
have?
section?
Can you do it this way? It's a template we're familiar with. We all found valuable.
No, but.
Can we do it that way?
We
'Cause we
are
don't
doing
like
it,
your way.
but yeah, the answer is yes, but
Okay.
not instead of doing this. That to me would be one of the products of the process we're doing now. At the end of it, we would have, here are the pros, here are the cons. And the commission is going to take next steps. That's one of the proposals coming out of the comprehensive review.
And do you want us to vote on this today?
No, not on the answer to the question, posing the question.
Do you want us to vote on this document today?
I would like to, yeah, very much.
I think that.
Not on the document, not on the document. Not asking you to vote on the document. Asking you to react to these proposals.
I think what the commissioner's saying is in order for them to digest this, like a spreadsheet that has each proposal prioritized by staff with how their proposal originated.
I understand.
pros,
but
the
you
cons,
don't- you don't- you don't- no, it's not
pros,
necessary.
That's what
cons,
we want.
and staff position. They would like to go through that document rather than see it in this format. So it's
Mhm.
almost like the same process, Sandy, but they need it in a different
I'm
format.
completely familiar with it. It's what we did after the first public hearings where I put together a spreadsheet that had the issues that had been raised, what had the commentary received, and then we had staff's position on each of those
No,
proposals.
not that.
So we've
It's a
done
different-
that in the past.
It has a
No,
little
it's a
bit more
different document.
information, yeah,
That-
because it's what we're putting here, what the questions are, right, is you're calling questions that we want to take a look at, consider. And then adding information where it came from, pros, cons, staff position, then discussion about what are ones, that like maybe we categorize them. Like these ones we feel like staff can go ahead with if we get the green light. These commissioners are probably going to discuss, we don't know what to do exactly, and maybe at one meeting, we go through all the ones we think that, staff could go ahead and commissioners say, yep, oh, no, this one we should talk about, so we move that up, we put that on a different list.
Right.
So it prioritizes their work. It's not saying we can't have that document at the end. It's just, this is how they want to visualize what we're putting in this format. They just want it in a different format.
Plus, I think it goes to Nancy's point around equalization as well, for those of us who are new. And having, the way I just heard it described, gives the platform for information for all of us, at least for me, of having both the information right there, understanding the context of what's in front of me, and then being a participant in the discussion based on those recommendations and the spreadsheet as laid out or the scoping document. And that's, to me, very helpful because this is all very fascinating, but again, I'm starting after the fact and then having it laid out this way, I think for me and the other commissioner, just gives more of a platform for us to be informed as far as the discussion process is concerned.
Yeah, and Cindy, it's not it's not the spreadsheet document that you're talking about. At our first public hearing, there was that spreadsheet document you're talking about, but then I think it was Emily maybe who prepared
The positions, yeah.
That
a
was your- not
text
me.
document, not a spreadsheet,
Right.
but proposal by proposal, each of them had under them, here's the pros for that proposal, here's the cons, here's staff's recommendation.
Right.
So it's
And we can
more detailed than that
meld it
spreadsheet
together,
was.
so it's a spreadsheet that has all that
Yeah, that's
information,
fine.
because it's, yeah, I think I understand what the commissioners would benefit from. I will say, I don't know that we can tackle all 60 proposals by the next meeting, getting that together, but
No,
perhaps.
if it's in a
No, but yeah,
spreadsheet,
I guess-
I could bang that out.
I
do nothing
think one of the
else.
things that we talked
Do
about,
what you can.
we weren't gonna do,
And we could do it by
60
area too, and
proposals.
prioritize.
we were going to do them by subject area.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that we could do,
Yeah.
that we could do.
And
We could take ethics and
Right,
lobbying
yeah.
for the next
Right.
meeting, fill it all in. We could work with staff to make sure it has staff input. Carol, do you want to?
Oh, no, I do. I just,
no, we wouldn't do
Give me a
lobbying
put it
next,
next
she won't.
Right, okay,
Carol
so we
will-
won't do lobbying at the next meeting, right? Because Carol has a very important day that is scheduled. But yeah, so we won't do lobbying at the next, we can revisit ethics, we can look at FDS, we can look at training. Those are teed up.
Can I just say, I think some of them, again, the difference between a proposal and a question to me is, a proposal is somebody's gonna make a motion.
I
To,
see what you're saying. It's the
to adopt
concrete thing.
X.
Yes,
right,
yes.
it's the
Yep.
solution to the problem, not the identification of the problem.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
And for
Yeah.
some of the things on our list, no, we won't be able to have that ready for the next meeting, because actually it's a lot of work. Nobody, like the example that I was just giving, I don't even know if there will be a proposal on the travel, outside reimbursement for travel, because I don't know if any of the commissioners or anybody on staff actually wants that. All I know is that when it's come up, I've had conversations with staff in our general counsel's office and others, like, wow, these regs are a bit murky here and may not fully capture the interests that we think need to be captured. Okay, don't put that up, that's not a pro and con, right? You can't, so you actually, we can't have that. So it's a list
We can
of
put a
pros
note
and cons where there
section,
are,
too.
but some of them will just be, so-and-so wanted to explore this, like that's,
Yeah, and we can put like a status almost too. So like if something's been talked and it's on the legislative agenda, and we can say on the legislative agenda for these many years and this is why,
we don't
right?
really need the pros and cons. We've
Yeah,
already
like,
covered it.
this, and if, it might be helpful though for some to see why we put it on there,
Sure.
right? You know, why we,
Absolutely.
and whether or not we've encountered resistance, because a lot of these proposals we have, for instance, we know now because we've been talking them up. So we can still put that in. And I see, I think we can.
So what do you need to vote now?
So maybe what we should do
I
is
don't know.
we should
I don't know what I need. I can have my break.
further guiding questions.
We can come back to the next meeting if you want to go back through the ethics proposals, or we can do them.
And then when we do the lobbying, we'll have not only the question, but staff's.
Staff input.
Yes.
Public.
Yes.
So we can actually discuss whether, as a commission, what we want to do rectifying problem. Sounds good.
So it'll be limited to ethics at the next meeting?
Ethics, including like maybe FDS and training.
Well,
If we can, prepare the entire document, we'll see how far we get. We won't do lobbying because Carol won't be at the meeting. We can do that in September.
I don't think that anybody was gonna do all three, so why don't we just focus on ethics?
Okay, we can focus just on ethics in the next meeting.
Perfect.
That's maybe.
do we vote on that?
Do what?
Do we need to vote on that?
I can make a motion to ask staff for our next meeting to prepare a document that lists the ethics
What is it
issues
called? What is it called?
that staff thinks should be considered. And for each issue, if there is a proposal that has been identified, either originating from staff or originating from elsewhere, summarizes that proposal and summarizes the pros and cons. Does that motion fairly capture what folks were thinking and at time? Oh, we're in public session, so it was recorded. Okay.
Yeah, I have most of it, just not the tail end, but it's recorded, so.
Did that fairly capture what the body is that consistent with what you were looking for, Janice? Does that-
Is there a second?
Yeah, no,
Second.
I wrote the column headings right down as she was
Okay.
And this is a
I added
spreadsheet
history,
we're talking about.
No, not a spreadsheet.
Oh, no.
Or like a Word document, you want a Word
Because-
document, so
because
it'll be a
Outside a
little,
spreadsheet?
Well,
You want
a
what we did for
tabled Word
the,
My
document.
recommendation was a spreadsheet, where we lay out pros, cons.
Yeah, this would
Staff
look like a
recommend-
spreadsheet, but be in a Word document, so we could add a
Oh.
little bit more text.
Okay,
yeah, you can only put like.
I understand.
yes.
I-
a spreadsheet.
This is not, this is a Word
Spreadsheet is
document.
more limited.
This is a Word document, right, from your perspective. That's a Word document.
That's a spreadsheet,
That's a
but it'll look very similar,
Yeah.
but the print will be larger.
Yeah, just second that.
That's fine.
but you
I don't want to
have in
narrative,
mind
just want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Interrupt the
Yes,
proposal.
yes, it will.
the documents we did in support of legislative proposals. Those weren't necessarily pro and con documents as I.
We can make it that, but we know
recall.
what we need now. I've got the table heading, I've got the column headings to put, so even if it's not exactly the same, we can.
I can even find the
I
source
have it.
document that I'm talking about, but Emily knows what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, yeah. It's the one that helped us through the
I don't think
spreadsheets.
we need to take a vote. We're just asking this
The vote is-
I think
I can't say it.
I would still like to ask for a vote on my motion, just because I think articulating with specificity what we're looking for, if it's not voted on, it won't be reflected in the minutes, and I think it'd be helpful to have it reflected in the minutes. So I think I'd still like to ask for a vote on my motion, if that's okay.
Okay. There's a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All in favor?
You want to read it?
Yeah.
I want to hear. Yeah.
Because I didn't get that last part. Make motion to ask staff to prepare a document that lists ethics issues that staff thinks should be considered, and if there is an issue, I didn't get that last part.
Oh, and if there's a proposal.
Okay.
Meaning a course of action that we could take. Summarize that proposal. And then summarize the pros and cons for that proposal.
And the staff recommendation.
And
And the
recommendation.
staff recommendation on it. Or,
That's it.
no, or indicate that there isn't a proposal at this time. But one could be developed, like there,
Just staff recommendation.
but there's some things where staff don't know what they want to recommend, because
So-
that's the point. We still need
I-
to-
Are
I
you
can read
doing
out the columns,
outside
right?
what? Yeah,
Yes.
we have our guiding questions, which was the identification.
That's okay for me.
And we have
You mean these, like what
proposals.
are up right here?
Those are the proposals.
But they're really just like, they don't say exactly what we want to do. But I think you're saying take each of these and then say, okay, is a specific proposal, like how do we want to clarify the part 38 regs? So, right?
No, I think we're coming back a step, because we're starting out with, if you have the slides, Commissioner Vice Chair.
Yeah.
You'll see that there are guiding questions, which are essentially issues that staff has identified as potential issues to address.
Are you looking at?
And then
Go back to slide 7.
those are followed
Seven.
by proposals aimed at addressing the guiding questions are the issues. The proposals are the responses to those issues. That's the structure we have here. So they're not, this is the first part of the questions. The second part are in the nature of answers. They're not articulated regulations. They're not articulated legislative proposals. There are conceptual responses, which may take the form of regulations. They may take the form of policy changes or procedural changes, or they may take the form of proposed legislation. So we have the questions, we have the answers. We were going to discuss the pros and cons to the extent they were raised today, and the spreadsheet laid out what the reactions were from the various interest groups that took the time to respond to those. If you want us to, we can come up with cons, even if that's not staff's. If staff supports a proposal, are you expecting cons as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that we know it's
no,
coming
let me finish. So are the cons coming from the responses that we got through our various processes, or do you want us to conceptualize cons that may come up? Is it part of it? It's a kind of dialectical
I'm comfortable with
process.
with what you articulated in the promotion. That's how I wanted to format. I would keep going. I'm not sure if what you're saying is consistent with what Commissioner Ayers is saying, but I like the language that's been used in this proposal, in this.
No, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want clarification.
Can I just, this shouldn't be hard.
Right.
The specific format should be one that achieves the goal of informing us. It's that
It
simple.
is.
It's that simple.
No, that's not my question.
But
But,
it's
The format's not the question at all.
well,
My question is, can we take our guiding questions, turn them into issues? Because I think that's where we're going. Or do you want different issues? And can our proposals still stand as proposals? And we will add to that pros, cons, and commentary from others.
I think what I'm hearing is they want like a 4 to 5 word description of the issue. If we have a specific proposal, like a regulation to do this. Put that in, put everything we have. If we don't, we can put in, like, we need commissioners or staff to think about what a proposed regulation might look like. And here's the feedback that we've gotten. And what
Yes,
the
we think
staff
about it.
position is, and the staff position could be, we need to do more, we need to look into this more.
No, no,
right?
that's not my question.
I'm not trying to answer your
I
question, I'm trying to
understand.
explain what I
No,
think
no,
the commissioners
no,
want.
I'm asking a different question.
What's your question?
My question is, we have, the guiding questions, from my perspective, are the issues.
Mhm.
The proposals are the proposals. The way I conceive the project, we would take the guiding questions, those would effectively be the issues. We would have our proposals are the response to it. And then we would add to that why we think it's important to do that, the pros.
Yeah.
The cons, I have a little bit of a question. Do you want us to conceptualize cons? Come up with things that we think might be problematic about them? That step we haven't taken. Do you want that?
Yeah.
I'm just asking, do you want that in the document?
Yeah. well,
Even if they haven't,
right.
even if they haven't been raised by any of the commentators.
Let me try to answer that,
On top of it.
making sure that others can say if they disagree. But here's my view. Right now, the current thing has guiding questions.
I know, it's debilitating. Yeah, yeah.
Somebody else.
Oh, Maureen,
Maureen,
you're
you
on.
need to mute, please.
I know.
I'm like, my phone still works, so I'm like jockeying.
Yeah.
Maureen,
Yeah.
You're sharing with the class.
I muted.
Okay, thank you. So right now, the questions are in a separate section from the proposals. I think it would be helpful to match them together so we can see what the problem, so the format would be, and what that will create is then some sort of orphaned questions, like the last one in lobbying is, are portions of the commission's lobbying regulations too complicated? That some of these proposals may be an answer to that. Yes, here's what we could simplify, but that also strikes me as a good open-ended. Do people want to engage with that, staff or commission? Good, so we'll have one on the list that isn't followed by a proposal. For now, getting to your question, for the proposals that do exist, yeah, as a commissioner, I think part of what I absolutely need from staff is not a one-sided presentation, but by the way, here are the objections that could be raised to this issue, and why staff doesn't find those objections persuasive. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely, because what for me would be the worst is if we had a discussion of a proposal, staff had presented why they think it's a good idea, and then I see in media coverage or in statements from affected stakeholders, here's an objection, and I think, dear God, I don't even know what the response to that is, right? Like, I want to be prepared. Now, I'm not saying I need that be in any particular document, but I definitely would need it before I voted to adopt a proposal. And I think it's important if the purpose of what you're going to present at the next meeting is helping us delegate, you know, like what's going to go to a committee, what's going to go into a full commission meeting, what's going to be, we're just saying staff give us a proposal, we don't need further commission discussion. Well, I think probably it's helpful to know, hey, there's a concern that is going to get raised, and commissioners can say, oh, actually, I think that makes me think this is a meaty question.
Sure, and anticipating that, that's why we formulated the proposals. I know not everybody was happy with that process. We formulated the proposals so we could get input from our public hearing process on just that. And so we got cons as well as pros.
Yeah.
So we have that. The pros, maybe we have to do more formulating because certainly support this proposal. Those who oppose gave us reasons for. But where we don't have that, I think what you're saying is, even if we didn't get that kind of feedback, you would like us to inform you on what potential, even if it hasn't been raised.
That's my view.
Okay, no, so it's going beyond, I just wanted to be clear on that, so I think we're in the same.
Beyond the raised objection.
Actually,
Beyond the raised objections, okay.
it's become less clear, but I'll go.
No, well, it clarified it
It's
for
become
me,
less
so
clear.
So that's helpful.
This is the vote, you know.
Cons will include not only those that have been raised by the public, but any anticipated objections that they Yeah. come on.
Right, and likewise,
Sorry.
the pros will also address the cons that
Same
we
as
got from the
Yeah,
public, so
okay.
that so you have that as well. And the goal of this is then commissioners can decide whether to move forward with the proposal, not either as part of the comprehensive review process or independently, or send it off to a committee for further consideration. And maybe there are other options as well. Okay.
Only 20 minutes.
All right,
in.
so
Okay.
let's, so somebody's,
She's muted, no, she's muted.
let's vote on
Okay.
the motion and then move to the next item. All, it was seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Is that
What are we voting?
Dolly,
Commissioner Austin or,
Dolly, and
okay,
Yeah,
Dolly and
Yep, I was an aye.
I'm gonna abstain
Scott.
because I
Bye-bye,
don't
okay.
understand it well enough.
Dolly,
She's
you,
abstaining.
I'm
You're
gonna
abstaining?
abstain because I don't understand it well enough.
okay. All right, the next, so we'll discuss, ethics will be on our agenda next month.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And the proposal will be included in the book when we get it, not handed out when we get it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I apologize for that. That was inadvertent.
Okay, the next item is the amendment to proposed advisory opinion 25.03, applying the state ethics law and regulations for the defense fund, which is an attachment K.
Correct. And Michael will address.
Wait a minute, wait.
Director of Ethics, Michael Fan, is going to discuss this issue.
Are we executive?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. As explained in the covering memorandum, it came to our attention that there was one factual error in the original advisory opinion. And this proposed draft corrects that one factual error. As we explained, we don't believe that this changes the original analysis in any way. In the end, there's no way for the Attorney General to learn who has contributed money to the defense fund with the intention of benefiting her directly. There's just no public disclosure of information of anyone contributing directly to the defense fund to support her directly. And that remains true even with this factual correction. So we're asking for a vote to approve this draft just to correct that one factual error.
Yes, understand.
Thanks. I'm okay with correcting it, provided that we indicate in the opinion that it was corrected and what the correction was to avoid, I'm sorry if I'm missing that it does that, but
They're gonna footnote, but
it
We
doesn't.
could put a footnote
Oh,
in there.
yeah, so I guess I would suggest in the same way that, when newspapers correct something, they add a little text at the bottom
Yeah.
that says this was corrected. I just think it'd be useful because our documents may, for transparency, and then also because our documents may circulate, and if there's an earlier version that looks
Yeah.
different, I think it's really important that this say corrected on X date, and then there's a footnote that says what the change was.
Very good, we could do that.
We can add that to the heading too. So the advisory opinion
Yeah.
with a parenthetical correct.
That's what I was gonna suggest.
Yeah, we can
Like you
do
would a
that.
bill that's been amended. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So with that correction, is there a motion to approve revised advisory opinion? Mr. Edwards? Second, Mr. Gromwigan. Any discussion?
I just want to compliment Michael on how this issue was presented. The memo was concise and the revisions were easy to find. It was one of the easiest things in this book. So kudos to you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, it's unanimous. Aye. Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is the meeting schedule. We listed these proposed meeting dates last month, and we asked if anybody had any problems with them to identify them for today. So think we're prepared, we should be prepared to vote on meeting schedule.
And we already voted on the July and September.
For the balance of the year.
So I move to adopt the dates for October to December.
I'll second.
Okay. Seconded by Commissioner Walcott. All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Carvalho, are you voting?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Unanimous. I don't think there's any new and other business at this point. Actually, we're gonna have to, other items, so let's take a motion to enter into executive session. Section 105 and section 111. To address matters concerning employment personnel, pending litigation, and investigative enforcement and other matters that is confidential pursuant to section 94 executive session, section 105 of the public courts. So moved. Thank you, Commissioner. Harris, second by Chair, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are entering into executive session. Let's take 10 minutes. Welcome back. Welcome back to the July meeting, the June meeting.
Only felt like
Ethics
a
and
month.
lobbying in Government. I asked Executive Director Berlin to give us a readout of what was accomplished during the executive session.
Thank you. In executive session, the commission discussed matters related to litigation and legal advice. The commission discussed personnel matters. The commission discussed a formal opinion pursuant to executive law section 94.7C. The commission authorized steps in several investigative matters, closed 6 matters, and discussed other investigative matters. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda, which we heard from this morning, is item 5, social funding exemption application pursuant to legislative rule sections 1A(c)(4) and 1J(c)(4). We have a request for an exemption from reporting source of funding. I think we'll wait for Director of Lobbying Quinn to return to.
She's on her way down momentarily. I think we can move on to the regulation, the first regulation though, unless, does that need,
Well, that's her also.
oh, right.
While we're waiting for Carol, I can refer the commission on that item to the materials under tab G in the agenda book.
And which tab is the reg that we're going to be voting on?
H.
Here she is. So Carol, we are on item G, which is the source of funding exemption request.
We're live.
We are live.
Okay. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, so on G, yep, in attachment G, on April 29th, we got a source of funding exemption request from UUP, which is the United University Professionals. It's a labor organization union representing SUNY staff. They were requesting exemption from their source of funding disclosure. And so we are looking at that today. To give you a brief history of source of funding law, it was enacted in 2011 with our regulations at Part 938 in 2012. The purpose in general is transparency about who is funding client activity in these big lobbying campaigns. As part of source of funding law, It only requires sources to be disclosed for clients who spend a decent amount of money lobbying in New York State. And that's called an expenditure threshold. So if they meet that threshold, then they have to disclose their sources. The only other key point I'd point out about the law and the history of it is in 2016, then the legislature made further amendments that actually strengthened the source of funding law, captures more source of funding because they lowered the expenditure threshold from 50,000 in New York State spending to only 15. And the contribution amount that used to have to be disclosed, you'd have to have given more than 5,000. Now in 2016 it was lowered to more than 2,500. So the legislative intent seems clear about transparency and source of funding. So anyway, we do have regulations on this. There's the law. The regulations have what's required when you hit this threshold, and UUP has hit the expenditure threshold. They're the 7th highest client spender last year, for example. So they do have to disclose their sources of funding. And the regulations provide that you have to disclose the name, your business address, if there is one, the amount of the contribution and the date, which is important. And then so that's what you'd have to disclose. If a client wants a exemption, they can ask for an exemption, which they've done here. And basically that would be asking us, and they're trying to assert that they're, by disclosing these sources, there would be harm, threats, harassment, or reprisals to the sources if their information was disclosed. So part of what they talk about in their application is they are concerned about unsolicited mailings to anti-union mailings to these sources, these people, to their home addresses, soliciting them to, stop their union membership and no longer be a part of the union. And they talk about some lawsuits with an affiliated entity and the like. The factors that we look at generally, or that you look at generally according to our regulation, is has there been past or present harm to the source or to UUP? What's the severity, number of incidents, and duration of that harm? Has there been a pattern of threats, public hostilities against the source or the property associated with the source? Is there evidence of harm, threats, harassment directed against organizations holding similar views? And then finally, is there any impact on the ability of the source, of the client filer, to maintain ordinary business operations? And then is there any economic harm? So those are the 5 factors we have in our regulation that we look at. So I guess what I would say here is they have presented some information here, but a lot of it hangs on the fact that they're concerned about unsolicited mailings going to their personal addresses. And so our regulations actually only require the disclosure of a business address. So they would not be getting, that harm really actually doesn't apply and doesn't exist. Other than that, the other thing I would point out is, again, I do think it's important to understand that the law does seem to have an intention erring on the side of disclosure. The applicant is supposed to present, some evidence of harm, and looking at what they provided in their application, in my opinion, does not really support the type of harm that would warrant an exemption in this case. Again, leaning towards transparency and the like. The other, so in my opinion, it's and my recommendation is that it should be, a fairly significant bar to pass, and there has to be sufficient support in that. Certainly, one of the key factors here is that the personal addresses would not have to be disclosed. So they should not be receiving these unsolicited mailings that they're concerned about. But other than that, I don't think that they really provided a lot of information that applies to these factors. The other thing I would like just to have you consider is a policy reason. So the law was written in a way that in 2016, when they made these amendments and they actually lowered the bar, lowered the expenditure threshold to capture more sources of funding, they also put in this provision that carves out if you have in this situation, UUP is a membership organization. So any source that provides membership dues, the amount of those dues does not have to be disclosed. The name of the source still has to be disclosed, but not the amount. So we will get names, but we will not get the amounts. And one concern I have is the law doesn't have that provision related only to unions or certain organizations. It would apply across the board. And my concern is that if we do grant this type of exemption, again, I don't know that there's been a proper showing of harm. But on top of that, I guess I would put forth a consideration to you that if we allow this type of exemption to a membership organization, then I fear that, or I am concerned that a lot of these organizations that spend a lot of money on lobbying campaigns will decide, instead of receiving contributions, they'll decide that everyone's a member, and then they'll get membership dues, and it will be able to be a loophole around the source of funding disclosure and the whole purpose behind the source of funding law. So my recommendation would be to deny this based on the fact that I don't think there's a showing of harm, to number one, and also a consideration, that being the main reason. And there also wasn't a proper showing, in my opinion, to support the factors that would allow for an exemption. And then I would also be concerned about allowing it in this case for membership dues types of organizations, for fear that every big spending client would decide that they have members now so that they could hide their sources of funding, which would be against the intent of the law.
Let me just note for the record that UUP's application and their supporting materials have been provided to the commission, and in fact are in the agenda book under tab 2.
How many people will this apply to?
So we've found out that UUP has about 40,000 members in their union, and based on their own, I believe, bylaws, and based on their salary, the union dues are based on a percentage of their salary. So in effect, only 180 of the 40,000 would have to be disclosed as a source of funding, because only 180 make enough money under their bylaws to have given more than $2,500 in the past year. So based on their salary, so only 180 make enough to have had over 20 years.
Okay, just one more follow-up in terms of the process that we've been through to get to this point. And am I right in my understanding of what I've reviewed is that, they've applied for this. We communicated with them multiple times, sort of talked about the fact that the law requires a showing of harm or threats or harassment or reprisals, communicated a view that if there was more than the sort of unwanted mail solicitations, that they should share that with us. So they've had an opportunity to show that there's concern about more than just the sort of unwanted mail solicitations. Is that fair to say?
I wouldn't say we've had a lot of communications about the application. We did have communications originally, because we were asking why in our source of funding review, which we are focusing on a lot now. We noticed that they spent a lot of money in New York, and we were surprised that they said that they didn't have any sources of funding. So we reached out to them and discussed with them how that this what the expenditure threshold is, and it looks like you met it. And did you get any contributions over $2,500? We had discussions before the application was submitted to us about how the law applies and who it would apply to, and that's how we know it would apply to about 180 based on emails and discussions we had with them. Yes.
But, no, thank you, that's helpful. And the reason I ask is just that sometimes we get applications and we say, we're denying it now, but in the future, you're always welcome to come back. But here, once they've actually disclosed the names of those members, it's public and you can't put the horse back in the barn, is that? I mean, so in other words, this really was their chance to make the showing.
This was their chance to make the showing.
I move to accept staff's recommendation to deny the application for an exemption.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Unanimous?
In accordance with regulatory procedure, staff will issue a letter to you explaining the outcome, the conditions vote, and the rationale for it.
Thank you, Director Quinn. The next item on the agenda is the both rulemaking to adopt amendments to the Commission for Lobbying Regulations. To conform the amendments to the Lobbying Act, legislative law 1A effective by law 2022, chapter 55, part B, the registration filing fee amendments. This is also Director Quinn.
Right, so this is at attachment H, and this would just make the regulations be consistent with the law change, which was just changed in chapter 55. So the registration fees used to be $200 per biennial, with the proration of $100 in the second year. If you registered for the first time in the second year of a biennial, it was only 100. Otherwise, it was 200. The law's been changed now that the registration fee is $250 and it is annual, so there's no longer a proration. So this regulation really just matches the law.
Move to adopt the notice of, or move to, what are we doing? Adopting?
To put it out for public
Move
comment.
To initiate a notice of proposed rulemaking.
Move to initiate the notice of proposed rulemaking.
Second.
To conform with the legislation.
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
Second, Commissioner Walcott. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Okay. Is there any new or other business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Edwards, second, Commissioner Carvalho, second by Commissioner Edwards. And we are adjourned.
You gotta vote, you gotta vote.
Aye.
Don't be more than you like.
Thank you.